Earlier last year, a parish in Morris, Indiana, found a consecrated host on the floor after it had fallen from a mass kit. Red spots appeared on it. The story went viral. Catholics around the world prepared to celebrate another miracle. Then the Archdiocese of Indianapolis ran the lab tests. Within a month, they announced the result. No human blood, just common bacteria. The miracle was officially rejected by the Catholic Church itself. Most people think the Church defends every bleeding host story, but actually, the Catholic Church is the most ruthless debunker of its own miracles on earth. The reason traces back to a Hebrew word, todah, meaning thanksgiving, and a teaching so confident it does not need a single visible sign to be true. Today, I want to walk you from the manna in the wilderness to the bread on the altar this Sunday and show you why the Church's skepticism is actually the strongest argument for what it really believes. Here is the question almost no one asks. If Catholics genuinely believe Christ is fully present in every consecrated host at every Mass, then why does the Church investigate alleged Eucharistic miracles with such relentless suspicion? Imagine you bought a diamond and someone showed you a glittering stone in the street. You would test it? Not because you doubt your own diamond, but because you already have the real one safe at home. That is the posture of the Catholic Church. The real presence is true at every Mass, in every parish, around the world this morning. No bleeding host can make it more true. No debunked claim can make it less true. But the stakes spiritually are huge. When a viral miracle is exposed as bacteria, ordinary believers can lose confidence in the Mass itself. Converts walk away. Skeptics laugh, and the daily hidden miracle on every altar gets reduced to a YouTube spectacle. If you are interested in deepening your faith, hit like and tell me where you are watching from. Consider subscribing to stay rooted in Catholic truth. Support our videos, team, and tools, link in description or scan the QR code on screen. But where does this teaching actually come from? Because the moment you trace it back, everything changes. The roots run deep into Israel. In the book of Exodus chapter 16, God feeds his people in the wilderness with bread from heaven. The Hebrew word is manna, and the Israelites named it that because when they first saw it, they asked, "Man-hu, what is it?" It fell daily. It could not be hoarded. It taught a weary people to depend on God one morning at a time. Then in the book of Leviticus chapter 24, God commands 12 loaves of bread to be placed perpetually before his face in the tabernacle. The Hebrew is lechem hapanim, the bread of the presence. Priests renewed it every Sabbath. Pilgrims at the festivals were shown it with the words, "See how beloved you are to God." This is the Old Testament type. The New Testament antitype walks into a synagogue in Capernaum and says in the Gospel of John chapter 6 verse 51, "I am the living bread which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread which I shall give for the life of the world is my flesh." His listeners are scandalized. Many walk away. Jesus does not soften the language. In fact, the Greek shifts from a generic word for eating to a word that means to gnaw, to chew. He means it literally. Saint Justin Martyr, writing around the year 155, defends this in his first apology, section 66. He says the Christians do not receive these as common bread, but as the flesh and blood of the very Jesus who was made flesh. That is not medieval theology. That is the second generation after the apostles. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraph 1374, states it plainly. In the Eucharist, Christ is present truly, really, and substantially, body, blood, soul, and divinity. The bread of the presence in the temple was a shadow. The bread on the altar at Mass is the presence himself. And here is the haunting historical detail. The Talmud, in the Tractate Yoma, records that the miraculous signs in the Jerusalem temple began to withdraw 40 years before the temple was destroyed in the year 70. 40 years before 70 lands you in roughly the year 30. The same era when a Jewish rabbi in an upper room lifted unleavened bread and said, "This is my body." So what does this mean practically for you today? It means the miracle you are looking for happens this Sunday, in the parish nearest you, whether anything visible occurs or not. Here is the second misconception almost everyone carries, that Catholics need bleeding hosts to prove their faith. The truth is the exact opposite. The doctrine does not ride on miracles. If every approved Eucharistic miracle were debunked tomorrow, Lanciano, Buenos Aires, Sokoka, every single one, transubstantiation would still be true at every Mass. The miracles are pastoral encouragements, gifts to weak faith, never the foundation. Think of it like radio waves. They are present everywhere, carrying real information, but invisible to the naked eye. Most of the time you need a receiver, faith, to detect them. Occasionally, lightning strikes a tower and you can see the waves as visible electricity. That is a Eucharistic miracle. The lightning does not create the radio waves. They were already there. And the radio still works perfectly the next day, even after the lightning is gone. This changes how you go to Mass. You do not go to feel something. You do not go to see something. You go because Christ is there, hidden under bread and wine. In the same humble way, he was hidden in a manger in Bethlehem. In the same quiet way, he walked out of a tomb before anyone saw. The incarnation continues. If God became flesh once in the womb of a virgin, he can become flesh again under the appearances of bread and wine. 3 concrete practices flow from this. First, slow down at Mass during the consecration. The priest is not performing a memory. He is acting in the person of Christ, and heaven is touching earth. Second, make an act of spiritual communion when you cannot receive sacramentally, and consider visiting a parish for Eucharistic adoration this week. If this kind of teaching is feeding you, our web app has daily Catholic resources and a tool called Soul Search that takes you deeper. Third, examine your conscience before communion. St. Paul in the first letter to the Corinthians chapter 11 warns that whoever eats unworthily becomes guilty of the body and blood of the Lord. You cannot be guilty of a mere symbol. The temple priests once carried the bread of the presence to the people at the festivals and said, "See how beloved you are to God." Every Catholic Mass in every language on every continent repeats that gesture, except now the bread is the person. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Isn't John chapter 6 just figurative? After all, in verse 63, Jesus says the flesh profits nothing. The words I have spoken to you are spirit. Doesn't that prove he meant the whole speech symbolically? The problem is what happens between verse 51 and verse 63. His listeners object. They ask, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? And Jesus does not clarify. He intensifies. He lets disciples walk away rather than soften the teaching. A good teacher would never let people abandon him over a misunderstanding. Verse 63 is contrasting spirit-filled understanding with merely natural reasoning. It is not turning the previous 12 verses into a metaphor. Our Jewish brothers and sisters raise a deeper concern. The Shema in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 declares that the Lord our God is one. To bow before bread, from a Jewish vantage, can look like worship of a created thing. This concern deserves reverence, not dismissal. The apostles were all observant Jews. The earliest Christians worshipped in synagogues. The Catholic answer is not that the Old Covenant has been replaced. The Catechism in paragraph 121 teaches plainly that the Old Covenant has never been revoked. The answer is Christological. If Jesus is truly God made flesh, as the Gospel of John chapter 1 declares, then to worship him under the appearances of bread is not worship of a creature. It is the incarnation continuing into our time. We bow because the same presence that filled the Holy of Holies now rests upon the altar. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with one of the great gifts of Catholic theology, the manna prefigured, the bread of the presence pointed forward, the Last Supper inaugurated, and every Mass since has been the bread of heaven, given for the life of the world. This week, do 3 things. Read the Gospel of John, chapter 6, slowly, in one sitting. Go to Mass with new eyes, watching for the moment heaven touches the altar. And spend 10 minutes in Eucharistic adoration this week in silence, simply looking at Jesus while he looks at you. If this helped you, share it with a friend, subscribe, and check out our web app for daily Catholic resources and soul search. The Church can afford to debunk every fake miracle on earth because the real one is happening right now on 10,000 altars, and it never needed to bleed to be true.